Good morning. We start with Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga from the small booklet. From the heart of the Savior of 100 deities of Tushita, on a peak of cloud resembling a clam of extremely white fresh curd, King of Dhamma, omniscient Losandrapa, please come here together with your sons. In the sky before me, on a lion throne, lotus and moon, my perfect pure Guru Swas delight, supreme field of merit for my mind of faith, please abide for 100 yawns the spread the teachings. Your holy mind has intelligence that understands the full extent of objects to be known. Your holy speech with its excellent explanations is an ear ornament for those of good fortune. Your holy body is radiantly beautiful with glory renowned. To you who are meaningful to see, hear, and remember, I prostrate. Pleasing drinking water, various flowers, fragrant incense, lice, scented waters, and so forth. Ocean of cloud-like offerings, both actually arranged and mentally emanated, I offer to you the supreme field of merit. Whatever non-virtue of body, speech, and mind, especially those opposite to the three vows that I have collected from beginningless time, I confess each and every one with fervent regret from my heart. You strove for much learning and practice in this degenerate age, and made your freedoms and richnesses meaningful by abandoning the eight worldly concerns. Savior, we sincerely rejoice in your extensive deeds. Perfect, pure, holy gurus from the billowing clouds of wisdom and compassion in the sky of Dharmakaya, please let fall a rain of profound and extensive Dharma upon the receptacle of those to be subdued, exactly as they need. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings and all transmigratory beings, and in particular may it cause the essence of perfect pure Losandrapa's teachings to shine forever. Sajipukhi Chushi Meto Tramrirablishi Nidegen Padi Sange Shindu Miteua Hidrokunamdak Shinla Chupashu. By the merits of having over this mandala to Lama Tsongkhapa and his two sons, may I, my family members, and all sentient beings be able to meet, practice, and actualize the teachings of the victorious one, Losandrapa, who had the morality of eminently pure way of life, was courageous and extensive conduct of the sons of the victorious ones, and accomplished the yoga of 2 stages of supreme bliss and emptiness. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalaka Niryatayami. By the force of having fervently requested in this way, hollow beams of white light are emitted from the hearts of the perfect pure Father and Sons, and combining into one, into my crown. White nectar, the color of milk, flows from the opening of tube of white light, cleansing all my sicknesses, spirit harms, negative karmas, obscurations, and their imprints without exception. My body becomes as pure and clear as crystal. We recite 5-line Miksema 3 times together. Migme tsewe ten chen chen resik, drime gimpe wampo jampelya, tupo malu jonze sawenda, kache gepe tsungen tsongkapa, losandra pe shabla sowade, Migme tsewe ten chen chen rezik, drime gempe wampo jampelyang, dupo malu jonze sawenda, ganche gepe tsungen tsongkapa, losan drape shabla sowade. Migme tsewe ten chen chen rezik, drime gempe wampo jampelyang, dupo malu jonze sawenda, gache gepe tsungen tsongkapa, Losandra Shabla Sowade. And a prayer for the swift return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche by His Holiness Dalai Lama. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in the glory for fortunate disciples.
Sanji Chedan Sojun Chonum La Chancho Pardu Dan Kyapsun Chi Dagi Chushi Geban the Dag Roland Penshi Sanjin Drubar Sho Sanji Chedan Sojun Chonum La Chancho Pardu Dan Kyapsun Dagi Chushi Geban the Dag Roland Penshi Sanjin Drubar Sho Sanji Chedan Sojin Chomnum La Chanchu Bardu Dan Kyapsunch Dagi Chushi Geban de Dag Roland Penshi Sanjin Drubar Sho Kangi Tuzi Nizone Tawa Tamchi Pambi Cher Tambi Chun Tenze Kodam De La Chanze Lo Namo Lai Kedan Lodan Jinki Tripon Dada Mi Kenon Ro Kunji Ranam Chizom Tamchi Kedu Dag Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Shoput delege much.
Shoput delege la.
That saving on the sa pasang de la lamrum ding di. Tanda sangdong gi kaptu la chitan le de yore sro. Ine da mang che do jing anzu di pecha shizong chin ma do this kale do jing dos kaisana ani dunta takba la ya mi mang do le de di. Ang anzu ngima she de yun samne ma chik she de wai na.
Usually on Fridays, we have been working through the Madol Lam Room, the text by Lama Tsongkhapa, and we've come to the special insight, the 22nd chapter in the text. But to be honest, this section is quite challenging, and also because we have different people coming every week, and some people come consistently on Fridays, some people just here for the day. It's quite difficult then to present this topic in a way that both those who come regularly and those who are just here for the day can engage with a text or with a chapter such as this.
또 제라마 중가와 쳔베 송레스 라 테니 다 제라마 중가와 쳔보 칸다치기오레스 카두총레스 라바이나 질로 직동갑 숨경갑 중갑된라야 배 샤쇼
Chikdong, Sumgya,
ngab
Ngapchun,
ngabdi
Ngadun.
ya 배 샤쇼 테니 kumбum sesai 중카 중키 세서 저도 다 간지 아니 배 샤쇼라야 고총바레스 테니 고총체 더 춘중 공내 아니 공론 더 배춘중 니 숨터바니 아니 파마라브중 dom바시체 아니 더 되딜라마 자침부 쇼지 최지 된주린지 세지 콩 쇼다 아니 콩기 군들이야 안 조 테니 갑투디 양 까마버 로비토르지 생이지 까주글라마 단데 까마비 콘팅 페시 숨바시와 차고 있기래 등이하고자 아니 딘디라 소비기다 아니 라마맘보 샤글뚝 테니야 벽 의라야 펩 아니 의초라야 갑투디다 섭니르 제사게 공범만슈디 최경 찬네 사자렌도스 사자 아니 데니니마 데도 삼로라야 펩체 갑투디다 직 더 geluk 세지요 말레스 갑투디 수요레 아니 니마요레 사자요레 까주요레스 투디 갑투디기다 벽 난게 사자까주 니마 릭스마치비게 라마제전 당바 참 샤블야 뚝치 테니 단 남바 산지비 쳐디 도당가 찬장 장나라스 찬장 장나요레스라
Gosa. Den ik kan utsuktu kerang dis Jerembise Dompa Shudu, Kungi Sakyalama de Lama Kri Rinchin Sekire Drinkimendo.
사키 라마 세면 다디 최지 된주린체스
Dundo Rinchin. Okay, Gosa. Den ik simple Drinkido. The author of this text, as I mentioned, is the great Lama Tsongkhapa. And he was born in eastern Tibet in 1357. He was a remarkable being from a young age. So he, at a young age of about 3, he ordained. And he ordained with a master, Dundra Purinchen, with whom he studied from that young age as a young boy. And then over time, he studied with other lamas in the area, such as I think it was the 3rd Karmapa, could have been the 4th Karmapa. So the Karmapa that was present at the time, Karmapa Rinpoche that was present at the time. And in addition to these 2 lamas, he studied with many other remarkable teachers at the time. And then in his maybe his teens, he moved to central Tibet. And there he stayed in many monasteries, primarily Sakya monasteries, and studied there, but also Nyingma monasteries. So at the time, the Geluk tradition hadn't been founded, hadn't come into existence yet. So Lama Tsongkhapa, he studied with the preeminent lamas of the 3 varying traditions of the Sakya, Kagyu, and Nyingma schools. And he sat at their feet studying all the great texts on both Sutra and Tantra. And this again he did from really a very young age. That's what can.
데리다 다 장야초디 아니 백윤난딩기 백이다 롬일제디 나는 다기 기비기다 추줄 디차거라스 대대등이 슈고 말아서라 아니 공부를 주고 송 아얀 디비 송 아니 지 레벤 렉덴자다 다와 타발라 소바 아니 시월라 아니 조지반데 아디샤 켄진 시월솔 소비로 다 딘티기 아니 다 숑디 펠레 수 규샤교 아니 베기 돌 여샤교 디시송 첸다 장요레스 로
What Lama Tsongkhapa was studying the entire collections of Sutra and Tantra as presented, as preserved in the Tibetan tradition. So the Tibetan tradition really is the Nalanda tradition of ancient India, where the texts of these preeminent masters from ancient India had been translated from their original Sanskrit into Tibetan. Masters such as Nagarjuna and Aryadeva, Buddhapalita, Chandakirti, Bhavavivyeka, as well as Samantabhadra, Atisha, and so forth. So these texts, and Vasubandhu. So these texts by these remarkable beings had been translated from Sanskrit into Tibetan, and Lama Tsongkhapa studied these remarkable texts. That's what can.
Terda the Jerumujitu se pe the Riks Manchibige Lama Givishinyala Tene Dodanga do Jaundige and the Chik Pug Kebatsoge Kan Deshe Javati the Tambushava and the Jerumuchi and it Chansang Jipet Lo Devuraji Chonyo Mares. Tene Jerumuchi Jitun Jambi Yang Drupchin Jitun Jambi Yange be Sharingusu Seni Tene Ani Tandoinang Zu Samu Umitawa said Teda Nagi Sugar Tigita Ani Zu di Ani Jitun Jambi Yange be Gansu Ani Mid Minanji Cheni Givishin in Zecheni Tene Gagarkibi Song Tigitilla 아니 타르심바 제반난체 아니 디 된강인 바데다 제롬지마 아니 이돌아 파브니 아니 탭 체존 딘디지기 탭 좁게 요레스더라 공송라야 탭 딘디지기 좁게 요레스
탭 좁게 데단 드라보 공 점프양다 남두 롭니안 양소
다고 롬니안 사비 제라
사베젤라
야
Diso, Degangla Gonjampiang Namdu, Umalam Dang Anga Ni Konda Namduja. Diso. Lama Tsongkhapa, he studied with the preeminent Tibetan spiritual masters abiding in Tibet at the time across all three schools, and he studied the texts of Sutra and Tantra that had come across from the Nalanda tradition from ancient India. But he found, despite studying with the preeminent masters, Tibetan masters of his day, there was still some obstacle to him. He was still finding it difficult to penetrate the subtlest meanings. But being the remarkable being he was, he had visions of Manjushri, visions that were as clear and direct as we see each other. And Manjushri then played the role of his spiritual teacher, teaching Lama Tsongkhapa the middle way view and various texts on Tantra. So by the point when he started to study with Manjushri, he had already studied 18 volumes similar to the size of the text that Geshe held up. So he was already at an incredible foundation within the Nalanda tradition. And thereafter, Manjushri started to teach him the middle way and Tantra. That's what kind of.
Dini tu chaondi, dini Jerumuchita Gono ya Shivchu Ngapchu. Pebi Kaptula, then Yemma Konangi Lamal Denshabi, Tachi Penata, Getachishu de, and Sagi Lama Jizun Renda said Chagores. Tachi Jizun Renda with Zubigi, and Jerumuchi, the Golong of Jungadan, Sumbikolayang, Mung Konang Lama Denshagu, Lama Sama, the two Jerumuchi Kunduni, and it soon to the Menga Shungich. Kanji Jerumuchi Homalaya. Cure somebody.
네, 데네 사포거나 공로 십중합시 인도 데네 공 제천렌다와 기차라 페비에당 데 콘소 네당 교성 콘소 페춘 게트로클라마 tör기어데스 데네 페춘다 남두 롭종제송
제르무치 공롱갑주를 야페온디 니마 코랑가 라마 댄샤유 라마 딘디어라 수 제르무치 군덴 수 니마 파 라마 댄치네 맹아슈로와스 라마델라야 다 제르무치 토비온디 딘디질레온디 아니 라마두수 수 제르무치 라마 댄치네 제르무치 로말레 큐리오레스 디콜로르기나 남타나 세우 슈요레스.
Then when Lama Tsongkhapa was a bit older, maybe in his 40s or maybe 50 years old, he went back to his root teacher, his primary teacher, Jetsun Rendawa, who was also the most eminent Lama throughout Tibet. And they had a long-term relationship of teacher and student. And he went to Jetsun Rendawa to receive further teachings. But actually, Lama Tsongkhapa now had developed so that he surpassed all other eminent teachers in Tibet. And their relationship now changed, where they both related to each other as student to teacher. And therefore, whilst one would give teachings to the other, they would now had such a relationship where Lama Tsongkhapa would also now give teachings to Jetsun Rendawa. That's all.
Teni ta jerumuchi dan zebadu chi geondige penata ani manzu chidam pen gyanan roji baino number sanji wi chodi gyagani ma kaptu gyanal tariyor was imbayne ya chisu ani pegyu nanden di gyanal ya tarkib chingyor was
Pegyu nang ten dene
gyanal tariyor was gyanal royor was tirwa di the jerumuchi kudilaya shi ni chongjo jirenda jerumuchi kudilaya teni ani pege dajana gyabogi kap thudu jana gyaboti ani jerumuchi janalaya dende shungi sar mamutandwa ine jerumuchi gita jerumuchi khona pege tachi phe ulaya ani hajang ani zendi gebo 인상 고랑 무스 페마드네요. 고랑 험마 아니 잠진 취지세니 야나를 땅진네 아니 야나 고마기 야나 잡고 아니 자빌라마 차와레스 잠진 취지
잠chen chje
야
dene kong jerumusegi getukle dene kong jerumusegi tsabnangsin gyanala pepsong
제
Buddhism was, of course, founded by Buddha Shakyamuni in India, and from there it spread to many neighboring countries, including not only Tibet, but including China. So Buddhism spread in two ways to China. One was a direct route from India to China, and the additional route was the Buddhism of Tibet, which had also come from India. This too had spread to China. So the famous lamas of the time would often be requested to go to China, and Lama Tsongkhapa, he was requested on multiple occasions by the emperor of China to come and reside there and teach there. Lama Tsongkhapa on every occasion declined the invitation because of his own activities and responsibilities in Tibet, but eventually he did send one of his senior students, Jamchen Chöche, sent as his representative to teach in the Chinese emperor's court. That's all.
제갑두디다 제르무치기 로미조 잠진 취지 콘솔에서나 단다 아니 간주 별이야 댄서 숨세지 세르 테버친 빌링 세르 테버친 빌링 차당이디 잠진 취지레스 제르무치기 로마 더 콩기 니마 당부 간주 자살 당부지 동고je 예치 캬단 레비 갑둘라 세르라 잠진 취지 꾼다저러 꾼다들 오샤 나고저 샤무 나고디 야나 고마게 퓨레사 공기 톱당을 했어요. 그 고사
the chatsanguni selpo goma song gondakela.
잠진 주지 꾼러지요라 세라곰발라. 잠진 주지 꾼러들이야 샤무 나고지요. 아 샤무 나고디 가서 님만 잠진 주지 야나를 페비 갑들라 야나 공막에 표도하다 제도 아 톱당한다고 저래다 공주 아주 고사된디 전부 여행이라 믹스에 샤무된디 괜여로 어디지 야나 공막 표를 뛰어레스
again. This I don't understand what Kenneth said entirely, but I'll give you what as best I understand. Ngena kanang yapo senoknang ni jelang ala yoso teraknang. So this primary student or senior student of Lama Tsongkhapa, Jamchen Chöje, he went to the Chinese court and taught the emperor and his entourage. And later, because he was such a renowned teacher, when Sera Monastery had been later established in India, his statue or a statue of him was built there, was created there, and the statue had a black hat. Shamo nakpo yore. Shamo nakpo, shamo tsokpa mare, shamo nakpo.
nakpo, tsokpo mare, nakpo di.
Nakpo. Deni di gyana ne lensonge.
Gyana kongma, gyana gyabo pus.
And the in recognition or appreciation for this great Lama, whose statue now had been constructed in Tibet in the Sera Monastery, the then Emperor of China gave a black hat to Sera Monastery to place on the crown of the head of Jamchen Chöje. That's all.
잠진 주제 야나라 제르무치 군습진 페니 다 제르무치 템바디 야나라 타레스 회기나는 통마디 아니 야나라 달벌 땅인디 제 잠진 주제 공차고 그랬어.
네, 제가 보고면서
잠진 주제 야나라 담보 페브로와.
네.
데니 제르무치 기타 추티 야나라
디고서
디칼라 타르바데스.
Because Jamchen Chöje was a close student of Lama Tsongkhapa, he had come to understand exactly how Lama Tsongkhapa was presenting the Buddha Dharma, and so through him as Zhe Rinpoche's or Lama Tsongkhapa's emissary or representative in China, then the presentation of Tibetan Buddhism from Lama Tsongkhapa spread throughout China via Jamchen Chöje Rinpoche. That's all.
네, 저단 디산 제요르스로 디산 제야데 나든 존요 마데 있는 미망부 라고다. 야나나로라야 곰바님바 틴디요라다. 곰바님바 망체라야 제르무치 꾸요레스. 제르무치 꾼다 샤요레스. 로 베나 야나 로쟁가 셀 소바당. 아니 단다 곰바님바 님바 베나 로르기 로십경 압제 투갸 로르기 요딩이 곰바도스 망체라야 아니 제르무치 꾼다 요레스.
Sungi de goso ini gompa ningpa denso dantarang dadung ku yore yenama nguma yore.
Tando.
Okay, goso. I haven't had the opportunity myself to go to China, but I've heard from those who have been that in the old temples and the old monasteries, those that were established in the last several hundred years, perhaps the last 600 years, the vast majority of them actually have statues of Lama Tsongkhapa. That's all.
데르데스 지단 테케제 셰쇼도즈로스 이네가 로르기도스 하코바이나 콩도스 하코바이나 지단 약부도 아스로 남산지비 위치도 별라야 칸다시 타르도 아니 야나라 칸다시 타르도 아니 벤나 노쇼라야 칸다시 타르도 아니 디낭신 그 표균 난딘디 대상 아니 표균 난덴스 라운디 미망부 도난 지기요레스 라 도난 지기요레스 도난 제거야 그 윤생카 nganzu haku ko do asira kandrachi thoni ro pi ta jing demban de ya rawa da a ti chi bu yin bai na zambalin la ya thona che go ya gyunzen shushu yo marwas ro ti mixe gi pegyun nanden la ya mixe gi pegi 아니 롬종 롬심 캐버드 파워치 로 잠블리 셴라 메비게 아니 롬종 믹세와지 요반자 디치는 단 잠블리라야 통나 체른 저거라서 다 딘지 롬종 믹세와디 원이 그 난된 게 롬종 믹세와디 아니 야간이 다시비 딘지 롬종디 무스 깔리게도스 원이 딘지 싸마지 수수도스 ngazu di hagoe goedi ngesam vacation boreshas ro
in my opinion, in general, to know about history really can be quite beneficial. So in our context here, how did the teachings of the Buddha, how did they spread from India? How did they come to Tibet? How did they go to China? How did they go elsewhere in Asia? I think there's quite some benefits in knowing this history, because in the context of Tibetan Buddhism, throughout the world today, many countries, there's a great interest in Tibetan Buddhism. So how did this come about? And moreover, what is unique about Tibetan Buddhism? What is the outstanding features of Tibetan Buddhism that lead to people having an interest, particularly in Tibetan Buddhism? And amongst the various unique features or qualities of Tibetan Buddhism, perhaps a primary one is the emphasis on education. Sorry, the emphasis on needing to have a broad and deep knowledge as a foundation for spiritual development. So this is I think one of the primary reasons why Tibetan Buddhism in particular people have so much interest in around the world. So I think there really is benefit in coming to know who were those original people who went to such great effort and endured so many hardships to take the Buddhism from ancient India across the snowy mountains into Tibet and then establish it in Tibet. I think there's really some benefits in coming to know this history. That's all.
제 아니 지당 대상 언제 따대고 배차사스로 근데 제르무 지금 남터지 단다 겨울무 지금 송규 아니 기시 투된 짐바 콤페 머스 바트니 개바치 모레스 라 아니 지 난추 쌈마인바 아니 덴듀그 배는 생리가 쏘바당 아니 배 배는 인계도에는 배 장추바든지 라 아니 공기 인계랑 토네 제로무 지금 남터지 라 디어레스 간스는 디다 아니 지금 벽에 벽 미싱엔 솔야 아니 제로무 지금 로르규데 모드 체액체도 디기사규즈레샤스
제르무세기 남타데 되네
인지계 돈이 티어로 고랑기 인지계 돈이 티고야 윤센 조저로 난저 벽에다 벽 미싱인기다 아니 지금 벽이 난된기 추어래 넘버 3기 위추어야 아니 장도칭이 망부여서 뒤쪽 체도 티샤규레샤스
these days we can come to gain a good understanding of Lama Tsongkhapa's life story, because great masters such as His Holiness, the Dalai Lama often talks about his life story, about Lama Tsongkhapa's life story, and he's one of His Holiness's preeminent translators, the great Geshe Tsultrim. He has written in English a remarkable biography of Lama Tsongkhapa, and also through His Holiness and Tupten Jinpa's connection or relationships with scientists, people now a broader diversity of people have an interest in the biography of great and foundational masters such as Lama Tsongkhapa. So therefore, in our modern world, those who have an interest in these things can easily access biographies in English and thereby come to understand the historical significance of these people and how they lived their remarkable lives. That's all.
nge nyotho gorasra chance the teleja nyotho gorasra pe yago pe maseva yago goras konjo pe maseva tene ngone ta shine ta di changsan chi lo ba na ta ngone pegi nandendi a dijire do samsung chi pegi ta nanendege ani kb shonla ya diji tugudo 점된 데다 diji jewan do samsung ngone tsama chaksares.
So this biography of Lama Tsongkhapa composed by Tsultrim Jinpa. This you can buy easily online, and it's not particularly expensive. I mean, even someone like myself, I can afford it, and so certainly it is affordable to buy. And to understand the life story and of this incomparable master, there really is great benefit to doing so. That's all.
Teni tangazo kecha tuyarada ra pegyu nandingi sangi chula ya lobjong cheondi kali shu gyagores ra nganz kali gyawrada shu ngado na ki shuji yabu shingo marda ina ya kali shu gyawis tambo pegi pena gyagar kibi son shagyo me tsigje ton yoji zawa segros tuzu lola sim ani shoginga yalan chuzu ngada konju ani lo mamburin ya chuzu sumba chega yalani ani peje chengya dengorta chikan tonga marda coffee seda tirda amjulo koy koraya mara poya pasha cha korara mara ini shoginga yalani peshasum kejyan peshasum ngatola sim ani ningu genzala ya ani tigin dewa Geshe Tsultrim Petrinro ani genzani nye ani gondan zandachi wanyamdro tsebotse ani titenda kharjes ani tikyan kandaji kogdos ngendindiji kogdos to sin tsebotse che lo nishu nganzukali gyab teni shi ni da Geshe Tsultrim chagores dendi kali gyagores ro dindi kali gyawanda ngone gi thendadi ro anzu sik ndende mayimba thenda ngone ji koyaji ngoro asra thenda ngone ji khondi da ngone da di khondi da semla gyotang gors labana da shi ni semla gyotang yagi ani lamga da masuna thongures tarwa lamga dindi ji yoban thongures ina sem gyotang kalga obedo ina tele khombashu chego do
Ganga die Tsultrim Jinpa ki debdegi mingi danta tepi and consul abgehen.
Yeah.
So for those who have an interest in purchasing the book by Tsultrim Jinpa on the biography of Lama Tsongkhapa, it's called A Buddha in the Land of Snows, and it's about $30. So not that expensive. And again, the title is A Buddha in the Land of Snows. Now to say further that to come to a deep and transformative understanding of Buddhism, it is difficult. It really isn't easy. And I can perhaps present this from my own example, my own lived experience, which was when I was in the monastery and starting my studies some years ago. We needed to get up early in the morning to memorize. And by early, I'd say maybe 3:30 in the morning. And we'd memorize the text, because memorization is indispensable in order to later debate, so that one can debate with a full body of knowledge and knowledge that your debate partners share as well. So myself and my classmates would get up early like this in the morning, memorizing. Then later in the day, late morning, perhaps in the afternoon, we would gather, myself and classmates, with our respective teachers, who would then give us an explanation on the text. And then we would go to the debate ground, which is the main place of study. And there one, by debating through using reason and logic, one comes to really investigate for oneself the meaning of the Dharma, clearing away any doubts and coming to gain certainty. And this was a process that we did like this 6 days a week for 20 years. And this was tough. No matter what the weather was, no matter what was going on in one's own life, we continued like this for 20 years. And eventually we became Geshis. So what was the whole purpose of this? It wasn't about getting the title Geshe or having completed all these texts. These things one can tick off on a checklist that one has done. The purpose was to transform one's mind. The purpose was through coming to having a deep education to transform one's mind. This is the purpose of education. So this was difficult to do. And even if one, through this process, would struggle to actually really transform one's mind, one certainly would come to understand the process of how it worked. But this is the whole purpose of education, to transform one's mind. That's all.
싱갈레가 drogo chunda 싱갈레 싱그레스. 간간도 로마무쇼 싱갈레가 dro로 자상가 비기 싱갈레가 dro로다. 싱가답 싱가 비기게 아니 tsukko tsama nganze luktan tsama 싱그레스 당한저로 다 대산 추차게 지나 로가르 모두 미지기 락비 치고 존나 nganzro 깨다나 약실했어. 같다미 난 tsama 싱그레스 원데 싱그레스라 칼라 소고를 비기 잡아 똥다 숨 쉬딘딜라야 칼라 타기우도 요마데야 디니마 딱봐 아니 잡아도서 거라지네 로 nganz 자상 조지마나 아니 십주 생각 없주 아니 자왕 없주 니만이라 비기 칼라 소도 아니 다와치 니 바랄라 아니 테마 레슨 코리온 거라 두지는 로고월스 세모도 거나가 조고 배열스 저는 저거도 거나가 하게 타셔더라 조고 예스로 원디디 요르스라 맞아 깡깡깔리겸 레로스라 다는 안주 공기다 겐도스다 깔리시 후자다 깔리시 후자스라
Geshis really know Buddhism well. They have really we can say really in general, Geshis know Buddhism extremely well. And to attain this education was really quite a challenge. And in fact, though, our education was a little broader than just a spiritual education, in that we were part of a large monastic community. And we also shared the responsibility for the maintenance or the well-being of the monastic community. So, for example, we would grow some of our own food. Therefore, we took turns to help in the fields, working as farmers. So therefore, as Geshis, we even know how to farm. But not only did we have to grow food, but we also had to cook. So the monastery had many thousands of monks. So our particular division, Sarah J, has about 4,000 monks. And we would therefore have to cook for each other. And the way it works is that a grouping of you takes turns. So maybe about 50 monks will have a turn a couple of times a month. And those 50 monks will cook the 3 meals a day. So everyone has to help. Therefore, everyone learns how to cook. So, for example, I can cut vegetables very quickly. And not just me, all the Geshis can. Why is that? Well, when you're cooking a meal for 4,000 people, no one wants the monks next to you cutting very slowly. Everyone has to participate and cut quickly. So we all learned how to cook. We learned how to farm, as well as learning the Dharma well. So to to achieve our education really took a lot of strenuous effort over many years. That's all.
처음에 이제 찼어. 안서라 간지 인구 추수 축지의 체가 인구 칼았던 거랬어. 답참 만세 데달인 참zam라야 발렙당 아니 수마된다는 거랬어. 다 발렙 미를 발렙을 속어라다 동단 니숨 속어라다 아 디쇼기 미 집중하지 디쇼기 추진이 체가서야 란전에 되니 소샤거랬어. 필이야.
Nidan checker. So get nidan checker.
야 란체 발레 소자 다 발레디 지 서원디 다 대산 아니 치게 노쇼는 줄랭이도 필 때문다고 그랬어. 그래서 발레 소단디 배마서 아 아니 차워도 배 가서다 샘라 샘지스키요 말하다. 아 아니 기쁘셔져 게모게 제모체 발레스 아 기쁘시 로거스라.
The lunch meal is about 11:30 in the morning. So and it usually is either rice and dal or vegetables and bread. Now the breads are these Indian flatbreads. So when we'd have to make them, we'd make maybe 2,000 of these breads. So we start when it's our turn to cook. Then we would have to get up really early, maybe 2:30 in the morning, and go to the kitchen, and we'd prepare the breakfast as well as start then with the lunch, especially when it was bread. It's a lot of work. And now in later years, when Westerners come to visit the monastery, regularly they'll come by the kitchens in the morning to make a video, because it's quite something to see. These 50 monks making thousands of breads, rolling this dough across many tables. So of course you have to prepare everything from scratch. So it's quite an endeavor. But I have to say though, the atmosphere is one of joy and laughter. And it's whilst one is experiencing some physical hardship, especially if one's not in the younger classes, but in the older classes, then some physical energy is being utilized. But the mind is light, and there's a lot of laughter when we're cooking for the community. That's all.
된당한도 이제 논유슈스면 주비길이야. 다살 때 소소들 로스직바 안에 따원 tum바. 근데 가드는 제모진 러시아가 왔어. 가드는 제모진 아 뒤즈 동발 제모진 여제신. 그장한 더발레디가 미스트는 제모진 쇼거다. 가시그래 기제모디 야호문도사. 가드는 제모라실라서.
One doesn't, or one's entire life have to take turns in the kitchen, but one works there for 20 or 30 years. One takes one's a few turns a month. But I have to say, it's a lot of fun. We really laugh a lot. We have a good time. And this can be quite surprising when people watch us, because we're working really hard. I mean, this is very clear. The monks are covered in flour. They're quite dusty, and they're hot and sweaty. But nevertheless, everyone's really having a good time and laughing a lot.
기부에 열어서는 점점 세라친 것도 왜 맞으면 기부 열었어.
And I have to say, I really do sometimes miss Sarah. It was happy times there.
대리는 남들들 안 해먹은 남들들이 간주 뒤변줄을 종이 열었어.
I've also heard that the Lama Tsongkhapa's biography, A Buddha in the Land of Snows, we sell downstairs in the shop.
Okay, yeah, thank you. 어디다 딘디레스다 딘자 다 믹서기로 다 넘버 산지비 쇼니 지당 곰싱 레고레스 랑안도 곰자당치 용고레스 넘버 산지비 쇼라야 임바이는 안도 곰델야 리니 용고도스 아 곰치기 아니 수수 남주 친부 가리 있는 참 신통의 자약이 곰치기 하는다스 곰치기 간주 레로 소샤도스 아 비코스 저는 아니 가야 아니 some you change you never kusumu chin. They on the tig sojalia charging. And to someone tell and droshaji, gomjik yayosaris. Another the yamanusera.
Dan kan chegom chikpuki kola sung song. Jukom ki kola sung masonge.
La,
Jukom ki kola sung masonge. Jukom.
ne,
Chegom
judan
chikpu.
gom kola, gom.
Yeah. In the Buddhist texts, there is many descriptions on meditation. Meditation generally we can divide into two different types of meditation. The one type is that of analytical meditation. So analytical, it's meditation which is analytical in that one does analysis or investigation. The one is using one's intelligence, thinking for oneself, analyzing, reflecting, thinking about a topic quite deeply. So it's quite interesting if one imagines what this looks like. Because from the outside, one is sitting quietly, very still. But on the inside, one is like a computer using one's intelligence, thinking it very deeply. That's all.
Terepena, Tanganzo, Loshun, Rikpa Yakpo, Yobaina, Tanganzo, Lojong Che, Tuzur was ra, Lojong Che, Tuzur. When it's Susu Namjut Katsusi, Yagitan Yobaina, Tangoya, Tuzur was ra. And then Ni Losur Len, Tangi Kero Jangora, the Katsus Jambaina, Shukshera Tegmudas ra. Nanzo Loya, lesson, giant the kitchen with the red in ya. Loshin Gavnanshingi, Shuk Tegmudas ra. The Dinzan, the Loshin Kolea, Gomjadi, so the Chegamin Sares, Chebachet. Young Loshin Kashikashi Yungor, Hajang is Semti Pusutobu Chayadang, and it's Namdra Mamu Chayala Sobata, and it Sem Hajang Magibi Captain de Yovana, Yanko, and it Pena Uktonlandolea, Sem Den, Gom Javana, and it Kapsugi Pigi, and it Semba Makiva Chayadi, and Shiela, Pendo Tende Yungiosares. Mother Chitan didn't remember Jina, only chippy like Gom Lea Gawada, Gom Jamdu Yungera. Oh, Tonan Chingijivana, Tambu Chebache, Chegum sing, Ra. The Gomgu Chujorada, Gomgu Chudi, Yuldi, Chi Karsada, Kichach, Yul Yagach, Sechin. Didn't tell ya Loten Gombaina. That Sanjichum did Chagora.
When the monks are young, this is when they focus on their studies because their minds are fresh and energetic, and they can have a lot of energy to put into their studies, and their minds are still quite light and flexible. So this is the case for young people in general. When one gets a bit older, then it becomes quite difficult. For example, now I'm a bit older, I'm needing to learn language, and it doesn't stick quite in the same way as when I was younger. So we see a difference here in age. The process of our studies in the monastery, whilst it is actual studies, it can be likened to that of analytical meditation, in that the process of debate is about using analytical reason to come to investigate a topic very well. So for those who have an interest in meditation, if their minds are still quite fresh and energetic, or there's nothing, it's really greatly beneficial to engage in analytical meditation, where one takes the profound topics of the Dharma and thinks about their meaning, thinking about it ever more deeply, cultivating these minds within oneself. Such benefit from doing this. And if one does so, definitely one will progress towards enlightenment. But if for others, including those who are young, whose minds are perhaps very distracted or are deeply unhappy, then perhaps it's better that they start with calming the mind, engaging in the second type of meditation, placement meditation, where one just places one's mind on the objects of meditation, such as the breath, and calms and relaxes the mind. So these are the two types, but in general, two types of meditation, the analytical and the placement. But certainly in general, for those who have an interest in meditation, one would be encouraged to engage in analytical, the thinking style of meditation, because the mind still calms, but one is developing one's knowledge, transforming one's way of thinking, one's personality. That's what can.
제 배는 간수 드링기 참delaya. 들 상통 셋. 로 상통 슬라운데 락바르 통. 락바르 통에 곰 라비오레스. 아, 그는 민코는 데리스 락통. 가리를 락바. 슬라는 할 만통야지. 랑간수 따지 롭종 마치비 까블야 마시바지. 롭종 약부 제바는 싱그러와. 아니 한말을 락바지 싱그러라. 디난신지. 로 아니 곰델야 니인고레스 페나 단다디 단 넘버 산지비기 곰갑단 쪼친 송고라라 지단 곰갱이라야 넘버 산지비기 곰디 인고 말아왔어 라 넘버 마힘비기 아니 출루카 임바이네야 곰갸여러스 페나 야간난게 힌두기 출루더지네 곰슈갸여러스 이네 힌두 곰다 남비 곰니디 바 샘프기 찌직도 내봐도 찍버려야 되느냐 내시 유기 토니 아니 개버로기어레스 먼저 다 찍이야가 찍 두가레스 라고 말이네 개버 티션이 개버로고레스 로
This chapter that we are talking about, but nevertheless where we are in the book, is called the practice of special insight. So what is this word? What does this word special insight mean? So another way it can be translated will be higher insight. So what is higher about this this insight? And it is that one is coming to gather higher knowledge, greater knowledge than one had before, or greater insight than one had before. So this is the meaning of this type of meditation that will come with this topic, that one is taking one's knowledge, gathering one's knowledge and gaining insight via that knowledge. And furthermore, to say that one does not need to be a Buddhist to engage in meditation. There are in other religions, there's a process of meditation. For example, in the Hindu tradition, meditation is widely utilized. And it has quite some similarities, especially in terms of the placement meditation, similarities with Buddhism. What they're placing the mind on, this is different. But there is other than that, there are some similarities. So here, one wouldn't say the meditation in one tradition is better than another. Rather, the point is that the different traditions have meditation, but there are differences between them. Lasso.
The Nambigi and the Langdongi, Langdong Gomiag, Gomgi, Yulzudi, the Dembashiris. Dembashi said, then Toma Dembashi did this chick jambaina. Then it Dembashi any gomshingras, young neon the Dembashi tolia, sound down the Dembashi in Rodandi, Rodandi. Yabu shoji shinya yojuchi. That Dembashi Yabu Shimba in a tinny and Deva countries drew go to Dunga countries sell go into some countries Tony, Dunga said on Deva Dutangi, Tigi, Labshadow, the Chanzang, Suzu Lebanon, Legores. That tinny gomji Gavano, Samla shoji pengos is.
When we think of special insight, this style of meditation, a primary object of it, or the object means what one meditates on, one's object of focus, what one is thinking about. One's primary object is the Four Noble Truths. So to be able to meditate on something, one needs to have a good understanding of that. Otherwise, one has no basis for one's meditation. So one needs to study the Four Noble Truths well, and while studying, one can engage in meditation on them, thinking about their meaning, analyzing. And if one does so repeatedly over a sustained period, both gathering knowledge as well as reflecting, meditating on that knowledge, one will come to understand the various topics associated with the Four Noble Truths very well. Understand in the sense where the meaning arises in one's mind and transforms oneself. For example, come to really understand what is meant by suffering. Suffering not just in the coarser sense, but the subtler levels. Really come to vividly see this for oneself. And likewise, in terms of the origin or the causes of suffering, these, through studying well and reflecting on them, one will readily come or come to recognize in a deep manner the actual causes that lead to suffering, and therefore be very clear to oneself, I need to abandon them. And thereby one continues to cultivation of the path and so forth. Meditating in this way is tremendous benefit for one's mind. This process of gathering knowledge and integrating that knowledge through the process of meditation. This leads to a real transformation of the mind. That's what you know.
The Dembashi Yabushi Jambaina. Then only Nanzu Tanda Camdro, Camdro the kitchen bushuji, Camdro Yona, number Camdro Mena, number Marisage. Sansam Pegita, kitchen bushuji tacheoras. The Camdro di Capsundrosa di Sanjichu Genu said resra. The Denshi Yabu Jishimbana, the one is Sanjichu Gendu Sumgi, and the countries Nanzu Kyogudo. Nanzu Konsole Reva Javana can consuming on the job took them to read the Mar Sajorada. One Gasha Jatam job to Yagi, Nanzu Nebanyaji Yungores. Right. The Denshi core the Auj Machina, Sanjila Jazu Gendu Kazuki Camro Chedabaina. Each had some let two mares. Ah, the Ichi le Matuna Ichi Auj Mevaina and two children join there. Covered in those same good Danjiton. Tinsanganzuta Nanchu Jangin Jilaya, Kitchen to the Jarmuj Kadu Sungorla, Nanzuta Bena, Jagari Kibi song to the Debana. Kadu in a day shit the Mandribi church, so in your mares.
Can we go to Mr. Kadison Soy?
Kadu in a Denji kitchen boy, but Sungores. Did Jarmuj Chibumar, Sanji Chom then the 아니 전부 개트 시동 생기 송요래 되게 나올라야 덴바시다 만트비기 최직 자원인 송요 말했다. 아니 야갈 개발이 벽 개발이 간지 아니 배나 야난 개발 간지 넘버 산지비기 처번 남다 짐바나 대시다 만트비기 최직 냠네 제 자원인 문도 왔어. 그래서 배 개첨부 아니 이나야 아니 돌 duty ranganzo that dembashis la tangashi modo da o ditola tsuchi papto wana tangoni ani sozo yagucha gres ro gom yagu jaltu gres namba yagu chetu gres namba re namba chindu yongi jimbana namba yang da wachi chetu gres.
Not only are the Four Noble Truths of great importance, but so too is refuge. Refuge is supremely important as it is the boundary beyond which someone is either a Buddhist or not a Buddhist. So the refuge refers to accepting the three jewels, the Buddha jewel, the Dharma jewel, the Sangha jewel. If one does, one's a Buddhist. If one does not, one is not a Buddhist. Just as a translator to say as an aside, because it's important in the what Geshe said, the meaning, this word refuge is this word only in this context is translated as refuge. It is the word also to protect or to save, to protect or to save. So this is the meaning. When one goes for refuge, one is going for protection, because it's the same word, protect or refuge. So just bear that in mind with the explanation. The words get used interchangeably. We'll get back to Geshe's explanation. So whether one is a Buddhist or not depends on whether one goes for refuge to the three jewels or not. But if one does not understand the Four Noble Truths at all, it will be difficult to have much sense of refuge. Likewise, if one has some understanding of the Four Noble Truths, it will still be difficult to have much refuge. But if one has a deep understanding of the Four Noble Truths, this will transform one's refuge, because one will understand how the three jewels can provide refuge or protection. One will understand how it is that the cultivation of the Dharma in one's mind provides protection from suffering. So therefore, deep knowledge of the Four Noble Truths utterly transforms one's refuge. This is something that is I'm not saying that it's something that's new at all. His Holiness emphasizes the importance of the Four Noble Truths regularly. And he emphasizes it because of the transformative impact it will have on oneself, and certainly in terms of one's refuge too. And this isn't something unique to His Holiness, but the Buddha Shakyamuni himself repeatedly emphasized that Four Noble Truths are the very foundation of one's Buddhist practice. And all subsequent Indian masters, Tibetan masters, Chinese masters, and masters throughout the Buddhist world emphasize the importance of the Four Noble Truths, that through coming to intellectually know them well, but not merely intellectually, to integrate them through meditation so that they become part of oneself, one's view. This will transform who you are and will make you into a genuine Buddhist, an authentic Buddhist. That's all.
Terida ron tinza denji di yakbo ji jangbai na ta susu chuji nyenga drobai na ya ta pigi gi go riri di khari shego na sam ngalan gogo tangi yana mena samsum samlo tawa kisira te tende ani tarji chitugres ra kya denji yakbo ji shimbai na teni pigi she ngone number sanji wi chuji shego dumundo the number sanji wi chu mashewachi 그 number sanji wi chu shego yes ani gogor tangi jimban lamsa haku tugres ro denshi ro dan shimbai na.
Furthermore, those who know the Four Noble Truths well can judge if the teachings they are receiving are in accordance with the Dharma or not. For example, am I just talking nonsense or not? You'll be able to tell if you know the Four Noble Truths. You can thereby identify whether any teaching is authentic or not, whether it is in accordance with, in harmony with the teachings of the Buddha or not. For someone who doesn't know the Four Noble Truths, it's all too easy to be misled or deceived by someone charismatic who presents a teaching in a way that's very appealing, but it's not a genuine teaching of the Buddha. But if you know the Four Noble Truths, that will not happen. Lasso.
The dembashi sila onita namji yonra kitsadala ya dongar kunjung gobalam segores. Ra. Namji yonra kitsadala res. Ra.
The Four Noble Truths themselves are well known. The first Noble Truth is the true sufferings. The second Noble Truth is true origins. The third is true cessations. And the fourth is true paths. Lasso.
Redangi januzu saba dindi yobana. Ra. And pentok chedu. Nambi savaroti. And this chick shigi yes. Ra. The karisni. The dungar said Manzung go na yada, togo na yada, jigoro. Tetsam keja the shego mares. Nanzu tachi sok denjin yen savijilaya. Nanzu kegore, Nanzu gedrogore, Nanzu shedrogore. Diko Nanzu rotanjiras. Imba in delaya, Rawan maybe Tony. 깨야당 아니 게로야당 신로야 디다 텔야 라만 톱댕인 속이 디 둥가 레샤스 디베티 디 둥가 체슈지 레샤스 로땡 안주 디 소르와이나 수술이야 지단이 로 미세디난게 아니 펜 드링게 파츠 로야게 라만델야 깡고 쳬바나 그게 라만라야 깡고 치기 슬라디 쇼지 콜 두자 따기로 와서로
그러니까 야쁜 니 알마송 강코기 콜라데 양켜송로하
안주 라만 총인 줄 알아 라만 펜 드링 안주 사제 셴바질라 수순 전도 여바나 미지온 계란 로초고 마르슬라바나 계란 로야게 라만 까바라와 계란 로야게 라만 까바는 계란 강인들 가위 연구 말하다 디난싱긴 안주 깨와당 치와당 개발이야 라만 매버디 라만 총인지 요레스다 안주 디싱금 매바인자 산지 좀된 되겠다 람디 땡거도 하서와 안주라 깨와당 치와당 개발이야 라만 매버디 둥하레스 딩안주 수치긴 되고요 말다와 디 둥하레스 인제 디 수그라운 초고요레스 라운디 아니 군중 생기니 규군중 라 간진 도르드나 아니 간주 샘라 예비기 뉴몽바 티게 대자 세단 때문에 써봐 라 마리비 싸와치비 대자 세단 때문에 티기티게 안 간주 깨와당 개와당 치와라야 라원 초고도스 들다 군중 생기들 다 디인자 딘지기 뉴몽디 아니 매버 소야 요르베슬라나 티 매버 소야디 티 매버 티바 탑시기 토네 매버 체바디 야 ngokpa 세고레스 데 딘지기 뉴모디 매버 송이 탑시디 카레스디 람싱이 다 ngan주시에데 랑동라 소바 땡인진라 소바 잔주기 셈라 소바디 뉴모디 세바치 뉴모 세비 세바디 수주 귤야 아니 가서다 케용행 람라디 어디드레스 디 시기 로단 약보지 심바나 단 남비기 가서 로단 용서버로 신조거스 데니다 디 아니 산길에 캡 가르치 주고 최를 캡 가르치 주고 겐들을 캡 주고 고바 준선 삼아 디톤은 통용해야지
빙에 고마송 ngātsu denpa shiki kola di dang deni kiamdro de yankyo sungro kan
denpa shi yakbu shinsabe 아니 캡순 로단 캡이 준선 삼아 되는 통용거도스
고마송. For those who are new to Buddhism, I think undoubtedly there's great benefits in coming to understand the very root of Buddhism, the Four Noble Truths. So I'll give a brief overview of the Four Noble Truths. So again, the Four Noble Truths refer to the truths of suffering, origin, cessation, and path. So I'll briefly go through each one. The first, the truth of suffering or true sufferings. Here, when we hear this word suffering, we generally think of a physical and mental pain. For example, if you're a little hungry right now, then there's some discomfort, ill of ease. That is a suffering. But that's not what we're talking about. Was the suffering that is meant here, whilst that is a suffering, the kind of suffering that one is referring to in the Four Noble Truths, it's much subtler. It's a suffering that we, in general, really have no idea of, we are unaware of. But one needs to come to recognize it. And what it is a suffering that is the state that we are in, where we have no freedom or control, in particular, over our situation in terms of birth, of aging, and of death. We have no control over this. We have no control over when and where we are born, whether we do or how well we age or not, and certainly in terms of our death. We have no control, no freedom. We will die, we cannot stop that, and so forth. So this lack of freedom is the suffering that is referred to in the Four Noble Truths and the truth of suffering. This will sound a little strange when you're hearing about it for the first time or the first few times. But if you take an analogy, it's a lovely day, you want to go somewhere, and you have plans and you're wanting to go, but then someone who has power and authority over you says, no, I do not give you permission. And that's it. You can't say anything. You can't do anything. You have no freedom. You have no control. Now, your plans, you have to give up on them and you have to miss out. Of course, what happens then? One becomes unhappy. So this is the suffering. This is an analogy of the suffering that's being referred to here, of the suffering associated with not having freedom or control over our process of birth, aging, and death. So that's the first noble truth, truth of suffering. So this needs to be known. The second noble truth is the truth of origin. So what is the origin of this situation we're in? What is the origin of our suffering? It can be origin, truth of origin, or can be, the word also means to arise. So how does the situation arise? What is the cause from which it arises? And this really comes down to certain qualities of certain states of mind. We call them afflictions or delusions, in that these are minds which afflict our mind in general or delude our mind in general. And examples of these consciousnesses are ignorance, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride. So these kind of unwholesome, non-virtuous minds that afflict our consciousness in general, delude or disturb our consciousness in general. These minds, it's through these minds that our situation of lack of control or freedom arises, or this is the origin of our suffering situation, are these afflictions of anger, attachment, ignorance, and so forth. So these are the truth of origin, and this then needs to be abandoned. And can it be abandoned then, is the question. Can a cessation to this, the causes, the origin of our suffering, can this be achieved? This then is the third noble truth. And this is the third noble truth, is a state to be realized, a state of cessation, where one brings a ceasing to the origin or the causes of the suffering. So this is the relationship between the third noble truth, which is the state of cessation, and what is it that ceases? The origin or the causes, and the causes of what? That first noble truth, that of suffering. So the state of cessation is what needs to be achieved. And how so? Merely wishing won't bring it about. One needs to cultivate paths or mental paths. And this is the fourth noble truth, truth of paths. So the paths, what paths are mental states or mental paths that we need to cultivate within us. And there are many of these, such as those of definite emergence or renunciation, bodhicitta, the wisdom realizing emptiness, single points and concentration. So these are all also consciousnesses or minds that we cultivate within us, and paths that lead to cessation. So this then is the fourth noble truth, the truth of paths. And to the extent that one comes to know these well, these four noble truths, and again, knowing them does not mean to mere intellectual knowledge, although one needs to understand them. One needs to integrate them through meditation in oneself. And through this process of coming to really realize the Four Noble Truths, this will transform our refuge. That's one of the reasons why knowing the Four Noble Truths is so important, because it makes our refuge genuine, because you'll understand how the three jewels do lead to us attaining a state protected from suffering. That's all.
어디다 디장안주기 소술의 라왕 총인디 수임바디 탈도는다 하고 매주로 저래도서 나다 간다와 로 간주 참선을 야직 Dwecha dang, Shadang dang, Ji control mebaina, and Suzuki power drought, Machado uses Sor Sigor. Di Nanzu Juji, Taji Dwechachi, Shadangchi, control, a Didi Nanzula going in roads, Kapkalaya, and control Sayameba and Medici, and it's sometimes machine sort of Achi Sorgorazra. Tanda Oma di Dingansul Raman Chong in the Rendos. Ra Dinganzu Raman Chong in the Dinza, Nanzulaya, one the Tani Mugoya di and Numu sing in the Chaganza, Numu Kandaziki, Nanzulaya, New Chiguri, the D Ra Sanjam then the San Gin Tongma Kong San Gin Kolishu Gin San Gini. Che Thomas son dige, Demba shed song does. The kitchen was shoes that Tanda Rampila in She Goyadi, Demba Shidredo. Ah, also then Gomja the Remoda, Demba Shidredo. Ah, this Angi the season, the one Lamsang Pigilaya, any Motre Goya, Shingoya, Kitchen should Demba Shichagoyanza, and Sanji Chu, Tomadi. Denji Chungor singing the song was raw. The Dizung on the Samlasha, one is Sanji Toma Dembashi Kachin Songores. Cheshamba Tama number Tamji can be issue Segore, and it Dodangagi, Teva Chamber, the Chungu, the Yonsuzoba, and the Shingi Ordinea, Toma Dembashi Kachin Songres raw. This was assembly at Trevastan, and Digi land Seju Chevana. Then the bay and Suzula Carsota land the mouse on the Mambu shows Raya Yosaris. Raw. And also did it ever did it go and a carriers, Sanji this one go James and carriers, the cousin Sungores, the call the pancreas, the call nugres, Ra, the machine the carrier, the dintig about the Nimaching mind but lonely lordy to see on the one didn't engage do a Samsung. The Chagores, Ra.
When you hear the statement that we lack freedom, we are not, our lives are not in our own control, this is difficult to recognize. And initially it will probably be difficult to even accept. But the more one comes to hear and then reflect to see whether it really is true or not, one will come to recognize this for oneself. So for example, right now, hopefully you're sitting quite relaxed, your mind happy and spacious. But then something may happen, and anger immediately arises. You don't have freedom over that. Something happened and now you're angry. Or something else happens, and attachment arises, and now your mind is dominated by wanting something. You have no freedom over that. You didn't make it arise, it just seemed to happen. You can't just say, oh, well, let go and it's gone. It dominates you. You don't have freedom over these unwanted minds. And from our general understanding and reflection, to understand why these arise beyond just mere external stimuli, why is it that people have these minds in the first place? This is very hard to recognize. So Buddha taught this, and we can come to recognize it within ourselves, but that too is difficult. Nevertheless, though, this teaching of the Four Noble Truths was the very first teaching that Buddha Shakyamuni gave. So when he arose as an enlightened being, when he taught for the first time as an enlightened being a few days later, it was this teaching on the Four Noble Truths that he gave. And the reason for this is something to look at. But it's through these Four Noble Truths, through hearing, understanding, and reflecting on them, we really come to know ourselves well. So here it's actually, this is something in the monastic studies that we look at a lot over many years. We debate about this. Why is it that the Four Noble Truths was the very first teaching the Buddha gave? Why was it not something else? And what is the benefit of the Four Noble Truths. What was the intention firstly, the intention behind Buddha, the purpose behind Buddha in teaching the Four Noble Truths first? What is the benefits that follow from the Four Noble Truths having been taught first? And what faults were there for the Four Noble Truths being taught first? So this is something that we would think about and debate about, not just once or twice, but actually again and again over many years. This really is an incredibly important teaching. It's foundational in Buddhism, not foundational in the sense of being introductory, but it is the basis upon which we come to know ourselves and thereby transform ourselves. That's what we're
그래서 당연히 뒤져도 상도가서 janzo 태워되어는 걸 태워카리 땅나라 땅라시스.
Our time, unfortunately, is drawing to an end. But if you have questions on any topic at all, please do ask.
Okay, the minute you go. Yeah.
And if there are no questions, that's fine too.
Yeah. Silent church.
Hello, Geshe. In our experiences with other people, we have created karma over countless lifetimes. Potentially, we have a stronger karmic link with some people more than others. I was wondering, is there a way to exhaust karma with another person?
Dini ngato mi tama da namdu drawa yore. Tokma ne ngato mi maampo da namdu drawa sersong. Dini yini konso nangla kashi ngato da drawa takniapo yore, drawa sukchenpo yore, kashi ngato da namdu drawa o takrimpo yores. Dini ngato pelche mi chik dang drawa sukchenpo yorken, kong dan drawa zepaje, kandres zepaje, mepase. Nge tsupa kong mi chik dan namdu yangse trukpa gyab yores, kasen drawa yores. Dini di le ngomane, tse ngomane, konso drawa yores. Dini di kandres se tukeres.
The draw meva soigona tanga sanji nga sanji jinju yin la gora nge sanji khari somba tanga tit tu tagis and jerumuji khari somba tanga di tu tagis the dilangi jira darwa the sanji dang jerumuji konjoge draw meva sogo chuna rangi jugi ani dosha control chagdo la soba dit meva sogo gres the draw meva sogo chuna di meva ina susu gyulaya sunta jig thona ya ani chamjig lojiya ba na ani nyen chagres ra chobo chagres mando susu la ya decha shedang control soba ani tsawni ni sema tu na ani dachi ani meva chana ni ba le yungo sara this song do sara the patient insides.
I'm a student of Buddha Shakyamuni. I'm also a student of Lama Tsongkhapa. So I will answer the question by giving an answer that is found in their texts. And that is, so when there's someone, for example, that you have challenges with, the way to transform that relationship, perhaps as you asked to bring that connection, to exhaust that connection, the way to transform that relationship is to transform your own mind. That's where your focus needs to be. And by transforming your own mind, I'm talking particularly about these afflicted minds, these disturbing emotions, such as attachment and anger and jealousy. If you can eradicate those, you will have no enemies. There will be no one who disturbs your mind. There will be no one that you interact with and anger arises, or you feel competitive towards or jealous towards, because those minds within yourself have been eradicated. And moreover, you'll have a peace and calm mind, and thereby can develop so many good qualities, which means whomever you encounter, you'll have a tender and warm feeling towards them, whoever they are. And whatever circumstance you meet them in, you'll feel an affinity towards them, a warmth towards them, whoever they are. The problem of not dealing with our own afflictions is that a person that you have conflict with, eventually they will move from your life, but they will be replaced by someone else that you have conflict with. And when they move from your life, someone else will come along. One such person will just be replaced by another. And that's because those afflictions remain they remain within us and continue to disturb, to afflict our mind. And thereby we respond with attachment, with anger, with jealousy, with pride, and so forth. That's all.
The din daughter Joris, Penanganzu Mitsenamaya, the Chokpos and the Ni Ra, Ni Yakshu di Amaderas, Suzu Amaderasta, Suzu Amale Saga, Ninch, the Yomares. So in Yomares. The Kaukalanganzu Sambila two on the Kondrusa on the Amaya Dukjanton dead in the Shagoras. This also same good model. I mean, when the Trushagi so in the modesty.
In general, I probably could say almost exclusively, when you look at the people throughout your life who you've been close to and have been kind to you, foremost amongst them all will be your mother of this life. She was the one who cared for you with tenderness and held you close and warm when you were fragile and vulnerable, and cared for you, placing you first and foremost for many, many years. So your mother has been exceptionally kind towards you. Even though that is the case, when anger arises, you can look at your mother with hatred, with aggression, even towards this kindness of people. So this really shows the role that the afflictions play within us. That's all.
Tilda, Jidanganzu Penanganganro, the Yungurosra, and the Nimu Mabambi Kansa in Savagella, and in Tonzu Samsura, and the Penangandrojina, not Demba in Sangrada, and the Pigita Dembari, not Ni Norson, some to the big Kabuyoras, the Kabuyorta, in Penanganzu Janchi, lay singing the Rangi Chibi, leggy. Debu rangi nyungu or mother, mishing saja ye leg debu de rangi nyungu yaji, so in the yomar was. Tinza Anzulaya, that G Kaswata Piggy, you calling dinner true deagi, Jachi, the Mevadi, the Gacha Gatambaris. Gacha Gatambaris, raw. Terin dry in by now. Sunny Nila. Gacha Gatam and your cigarettes. Terry drop shoes in by an and this would Ningo Kala Savigella Dracha cigarettes. Cousin Dradan Dinganzu Penanganda Dradan Yin said, so soon developed in Legorada. So soon develop Makami to tell Dracha dogres. So soon develop Kami Nimo della Niencha Yungres. Telling it in sound in your marsra.
In general, certainly probably for almost everyone, and I'll include myself in this, our mind can turn in a negative direction. For example, walking around thinking about what someone said to you, and this is turning around again and again in our mind. They said this to me, they looked at me in a certain way, they harmed me in this particular way by what they did do or did not do. And these things can go around in our heads about things that have happened to us in the recent past or some time ago. And moreover, we can be thinking about, oh, today I'm going to have to meet this person, and it's going to be so awful, this is going to happen, and etc. And then we project forward about these terrible things that are going to come. So this is the These are common thoughts. They arise all too easily and all too often and can overwhelm our mind. But it does not have to be like this. By training our mind, by using intelligence, by using our intelligence through gathering knowledge and thinking about that, we can realize the absurdity of this way of thinking, of how our thoughts are not really in accordance with reality. And then we can let them go. For example, someone that you currently do not get on with, that is the current relationship. It will not always be like that. That is certain. The relationship will change. And when you reflect on your life, you will know there are people that you didn't get on, but then something changed and you did get on with them. Likewise, there are those that you are close to and those that you care for. And every time they come to mind, maybe a smile comes to your face. But that situation will also change. Maybe you'll be even closer to them, maybe a little less, or maybe you won't get on with them at all. And if you look back at your life, you will find illustrations like that. So we know this is true from our past lived experience, and therefore we'll know it is like that now with those in our life currently. The relationship is not fixed. For 100% certain, it will change. And what causes us to consider someone dear to us or someone as absolutely awful is whether they act in accordance with our wishes or not, usually towards us or those that we value and care about. If they act in accordance with our wishes, they're now our friend. If they act contrary to our wishes, we want nothing to do with them. When we recognize that, we'll see just how uncertain, how not at all stable are our relationships. And therefore, to hold someone as my enemy or my friend in these fixed, solid ways, this is mistaken. So when we think about this again and again, train our mind, take care of our own mind, eventually we can let go of this. And we can also come to recognize that when someone else is unhappy and they take it out on us, we don't need to take that on. We can just recognize this is something going on with them and let it go and not take it personally. So like this, by training our mind, bring it more in accordance with reality, we can let go of harmful situations and we can be happier, whomever we are with. That's all. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Final Lamrim dedication. With a small booklet. For my 2 types of merits vast the space that I have amassed from working with effort at this practice for a grand length of time. May I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose mind's wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach this state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all lives, Manjushri. May I find the best of complete graded paths of the teachings, and may I please all Buddhas by my practice. Using skillful means drawn by the strong force of compassion, may I clear the darkness from the minds of all beings with the points of the paths that I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time, with my heart going out with great compassion, in whatever direction the most precious teachings have not yet spread, or once spread have declined. May I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. May the minds of those who wish for liberation be grounded boundless peace, and the Buddha's deeds be nourished for a long time, by even the graded paths to the enlightenment completed, due to the wondrous virtuous conduct of the Buddhas and their sons. May all human and non-human beings who eliminate adversity and create conducive conditions for practicing the excellent paths never be parted in any of their lives from the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, may we always be assisted by the mighty ones, and may oceans of prosperity spread everywhere. Thank you.